8 years ago, Catherine had been adamant. Kids. Absolutely not, she'd declared, her tone of voice leaving no room for argument. Joshua, ever the easygoing soul, had simply shrugged. Their life together was full of travel and late-night dinners and had been pretty much perfect. He'd figured kids could wait. But time had a way of changing perspectives, and Joshua realized that he could no longer be content with exploring hidden cafes in Budapest and bartering for souvenirs in Florence. Their apartment, once a testament to their adventurous spirit, suddenly started feeling sterile and empty. One night, nestled on the couch, he casually tried bringing up the subject with Catherine. "Honey, do you think it might be time we revisited our conversation about kids?" Catherine glared at him with surprise in her eyes. "I thought I made myself perfectly clear. I don't want to have kids, ever." Even though Joshua knew Catherine's take on the situation, he couldn't help but hope that her attitude might have changed with time. "But don't you think our lives become kind of stale? I feel like we're in a rut. I know we have all kinds of adventures, but it just feels like we're missing something." "Well, now that you've mentioned it, I do feel like we might be in a rut, but I had a different solution in mind." "What do you mean?" "Like getting a dog?" Joshua was confused. "No, not a dog. I was thinking we could entertain the idea of opening our marriage," Catherine replied rather quietly. "Are you out of your mind?" Joshua was shocked. "Just think about it, okay? It would give us new emotions, make it even more exciting to come home to each other." "No, Catherine, this isn't something I would ever agree to do," Joshua was adamant. "But what if it's the only thing that could make me happy? What if I need us to do this?" Catherine contradicted. "Since when? I've never heard you mention it before." "Not once. But now, when I try to tell you that I want kids, you counter by telling me that you want to sleep around? What am I supposed to make of it? Do you want to leave me? Do you want a divorce?" Joshua tried to wrap his head around everything that was happening. "No, I don't want a divorce. I love you. But if you don't agree to open our marriage, I might see divorce as the only option for myself." Joshua's heart shattered. He wouldn't in a million years have expected such an ultimatum from his wife. At this point, he was so lost for words that he simply turned around, grabbed his coat, and left. The city lights blurred as Joshua walked around aimlessly, his mind clouded with anger, confusion, and hurt. He needed an outlet, someone to talk to, someone who wouldn't judge. So he sent a quick text, "Need a beer and a very understanding friend. Meet me in 10? Stan was his college buddy and his best friend. They met up at a bar, and after a couple of cold beers, Joshua launched into his story, his voice laced with a raw vulnerability he rarely displayed. Stan listened intently, his expression growing grimmer with each detail. When Joshua finished, a long silence stretched between them. Finally, Stan broke the tension. "Oh, buddy," he said, his voice low. "That's a lot to unpack. But here's the thing that bothers me the most. This sudden need for an open marriage. It doesn't sound like Catherine at all. Did you ever get the feeling she might already be interested in someone else? Like, someone specific?" Joshua shook his head, a flicker of doubt crossing his features. "Never. We haven't been as close lately, but that's just been the rut, right?" "Maybe," Stan replied, his brow furrowed in thought. "But there could be another explanation. Look, I wouldn't jump to conclusions, but if you're truly suspicious, maybe you should consider hiring a private investigator." The suggestion sat heavy in the air. Hiring a private investigator felt like crossing a line, a descent into a world of suspicion. But the seed of doubt had been planted. The thought of Catherine with someone else gnawed at him, a constant itch that wouldn't be scratched. When Joshua returned home, Catherine was already sound asleep. He napped on the living room couch and left before she woke up in the morning. Over the next few days, the suspicion festered. Joshua tried to avoid Catherine, while every time they did cross paths, she reminded him that he had a decision to make. Her persistence, as well as the memories of some details he'd previously brushed aside, such as Catherine's late-night phone calls and the lingering fragrance of a cologne he didn't recognize, made Joshua's life a living hell. Finally, he made the decision. He contacted a discreet PI firm, a cold knot of apprehension tightening in his stomach. The wait for the investigator's report was agonizing. Every day, he wrestled with the possible outcomes: confirmation of his worst fears, or a clean report that would hopefully mend his fractured trust in Catherine. When the email arrived, his heart pounded as he clicked it open. The report was a damning confirmation. Surveillance photos showed Catherine entering a swanky restaurant with a handsome stranger, the kind of man who seemed ripped from the pages of a men's magazine. The investigator documented numerous late-night rendezvous, leaving no room for doubt. Catherine was having an affair. Fury, hotter than he'd ever felt, coursed through him. The woman who had threatened divorce for a lack of excitement in their marriage was now seeking it behind his back. He wouldn't let her manipulate him. He'd expose her charade and make her face the consequences of her actions. Fueled by anger and a twisted sense of justice, Joshua spent the next few hours crafting a social media post. He uploaded the incriminating photos, a cold caption accompanying them. "My wife, Catherine Miller, has decided to open our marriage. It seems monogamy isn't exciting enough for her. So if anyone's interested in joining the adventure, feel free to reach out to her." He hit post, his heart a drum against his ribs. The act was impulsive, a desperate retaliation against the woman who had shattered his trust. But as the comments started flooding in, a wave of satisfaction washed over him. Catherine, the woman who craved excitement, would now have a taste of a different kind: public humiliation. The social media storm erupted with a vengeance. News outlets picked up the story, painting Catherine as a villain in a modern-day infidelity scandal. Her carefully curated online presence, once a testament to her adventurous spirit, became a platform for public scorn. Catherine's phone was buzzing with notifications. Her initial confusion morphed into horrified recognition as she saw the photos. The restaurant, the stolen kiss, Joshua's scathing caption. Shame burned through her, hotter than any betrayal she'd imagined inflicting upon him. She called Joshua, her voice trembling on the verge of hysteria. "Joshua, what have you done?" "Just showing the world what you really wanted," he replied, his voice devoid of warmth. The hurt, the anger he'd bottled up for days, poured out in a tirade. Catherine, on the other hand, could only stammer apologies that rang hollow in the face of his righteous fury. Catherine's life turned into a living nightmare. Friends ostracized her. Her online ventures crumbled under the weight of negativity. The very life she'd sought to spice up became isolating. Her secret lover, exposed and afraid of the backlash, disappeared without a trace. Meanwhile, Joshua watched the social media chaos unfold and felt a sense of vindication. But as the days passed, a hollowness settled in his chest. The satisfaction of revenge was fleeting, leaving behind a desolate emptiness. He reached out to Stan, the weight of his actions a heavy burden. "Stan," he confessed, "I don't feel good about this." Exposing Catherine like that, maybe it wasn't the answer. Stan, ever the voice of reason, listened patiently. "Look, buddy, Catherine's actions were despicable. You had every right to be angry. But the public shaming, that might not be the best way forward. Now, you both need to deal with the fallout, heal, and decide what comes next." Joshua knew Stan was right. The social media war, his impulsive act of retaliation, had only served to further fracture their relationship. He filed for divorce, the legal process, a formality amidst the wreckage of their dreams. The following months were a blur of lawyers, financial settlements, and the painful unraveling of their life together. Slowly, the media frenzy subsided, replaced by a quiet sadness. One day, Joshua bumped into Catherine at a coffee shop. Her eyes were red-rimmed, her usually vibrant glow dimmed by regret. They exchanged a hesitant hello, the air thick with unspoken words. In that moment, Joshua saw not a villain, but a woman who had made a terrible mistake. He never spoke to Catherine again. Their paths diverged permanently. But seeing her, vulnerable and humbled, sparked a flicker of understanding. Maybe Catherine, like him, had learned a harsh lesson about the destructive nature of deceit.